All right, I'm good.
What'd you say, Nigel?
I said I'm good.
Okay.
You are good, man.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Great.
Having a terrible time.
I don't know how you could be having a terrible time when we got a full house and it's episode 5.
Episode 5.
Yeah, that's crazy. We've been pretty consistent with it.
You want to actually start us off?
That was it.
Oh,
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hey,
amazing.
No, I'm no.
Glad I could be here, guys.
No,
Thanks
it's
for
okay.
having me.
I did forget that I wanted to see if you guys came across this as well. It's the second house that's been on the cover. You know how we were talking about the big pink house from the band. Anyway, I looked into it and it's in Pottstown.
Yeah.
Really?
Isn't that awesome?
yeah,
Dude, it's like 20 minutes away from my house.
that's where Daryl Hall was born.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
Dude,
cool.
Dan is
They're
so
locals,
ready.
dude, yeah.
Dan is going to be the most prepared out of any of us for any album so far.
MVP.
yeah. Last year I went through like all their stuff. I like picked out a bunch of bands that I was like, oh, we know all the singles from these bands. Like we've all heard Rich Girl, we've all heard Man Eater, we've all heard Out of Touch, and it's like, oh, but they've released like 14 albums. Like,
Out of
What's in
touch. I
all
haven't
of
heard of
these?
that.
oh, it's 80s
Yeah.
as heck.
I actually haven't heard of that one either.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of out of touch.
You would recognize it. Ooh.
Oh,
Get out of here. Get him out of here.
Oh,
Not
damn.
start.
Yeah, no, Dan, that was cool. You did like a series of bands and you just listened through their whole discographies, right?
Yeah, because I remember I was hanging out with you one time and you're a big Into the Outdoor fan and you played Fool in the
Yes,
Rain.
I
And I
am.
was like, oh, I recognize this song so much, but had no clue about any of those other songs. And then went through like all Led Zeppelin. I was like, let's do
Yeah,
it.
that was probably an amazing time. Although,
Yep.
what's the album? Presence? Is it? Is that the one with
Yeah,
like
their last
Hot Song
one?
for No? Honestly, still has some songs on it. That one's probably the weakest one, but
Yeah.
some songs on that. I know you did the Police too, right? Their whole discography.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
it's only 5 albums, so
But all
Pretty
winners.
easy.
So I don't think they've made a bad song.
James.
one of my what's that?
Achilles' Last Stand and Nobody's Fault But Mine. I mean, those two make that album worth it.
Yep. Hot
Yeah,
Song
that's
for
a great
Nowhere is
song.
pretty good.
Yeah.
War is
Royal
what's it
Orleans.
called? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty solid album.
It's still Zeppelin. Like
This happens every time we record. It.
we just talk about Zeppelin every time.
Yeah. It so quickly derailed.
I thought you were gonna
hilarious, like-
say. I thought you were gonna say we do the Family Guy Barry Manilow thing with every album we talk about. Yeah, that guy sucks.
God, I love him.
No, he's got this good song. That album's not bad.
God, I
love
love him.
Barry Manilow.
We should just review like the same Led Zeppelin album at the beginning of every show before we get into the
Always
real
bring it
review.
up.
Pretty much
Yeah.
done that already.
That's our intro.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned Into the Outdoor in every episode.
I think so.
It's coming up.
Seamus, I did
And
I did blast it on vinyl last night. It was a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to think that's my doing to bring this into the conversation all these times.
That's a massive contribution.
Yeah,
There you go.
it's what I'm here for. You know what I mean?
Okay, I gotta
Yeah.
say something.
Yeah. To tie it back
Um,
to this album.
I'm looking at this screen share that Inki has right now, and the guy who plays electric guitar, his name is Hugh McCracken. That's just that is
Legend.
upsetting, man.
You think his middle initial is G?
or we just
Huge
mispronounce
McCracken.
Huge McCracken.
G. McCracken.
Unfortunate. Anyways.
Well,
yeah,
I,
let's get started.
but actually, a lot of people don't know that his brother is a pretty good acoustic guitar player. Phil McCracken.
Oh man.
No, we're really sorry, Dan. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Yeah. Enough nonsense, guys. Come on.
Yeah, this is serious.
But yeah, my parents had one Hall Oats record, and it was this one, like on vinyl. So like my dad got me into this, and it was also a major inspiration. Like maybe I should check
Okay.
out all their early stuff.
So you had a head start. That's not fair to the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's cheating.
Yeah, my dad's a big fan of this album, and like it's really a hidden gem, I would say.
I like it.
Like You hear a lot of Daryl Hall and all their hits. Like John Oates is singing on a lot of these songs. Like he wrote some of these. He wrote almost the first side. Like, yeah, I love
Yeah.
that you get a lot more John Oates.
Hall Oats.
Yeah, I do think it's
Very
kind of like
nice.
not one that's on the radar. And I remember you brought it over one day because pretty much anytime we hung out here, we would always listen to some records. And like I remember you brought it and I looked at it. Now, She's Gone, I think, is kind of like a radio song, maybe. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't recognize it by name. I definitely heard it before. So looking at this album, I didn't recognize really anything by name. I was like, this is kind of a strange one for him to pick to bring over. But I've kind of just learned that I should probably trust Dan's opinion when it comes to Hall Notes.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the another thing about that song is like this album came out in 73. They re-released it in 76, and that's when it became popular. Like this album was
Oh, really?
totally under
Really?
the radar.
Huh, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
the record
She's
label
Gone?
re-released it. Yeah. Because people like covered it. Like some Motown people on the same label
Yeah.
covered it, and then it became popular. Like they were on the R&B charts with that song, so they were like, "Oh, let's re-release it." And that was like right before Rich Girl came out. So that's like that's the
Kind of
exponential
catalyst.
growth. Yeah.
Exponential growth. Yeah.
Love Rich Girls.
Yeah, that's the absolute classic.
All right, who wants to go first?
I can be the first to like kind of put my cards on the table. I'll say that for me, nothing in the album really stood out. Like, sure, it was pretty solid, but
Wow.
yeah,
Damn.
Pretty terrible. Pretty
Sorry.
terrible take.
Sorry.
let's-
Coming off the top ropes at Dan's neck right there. Holy
No, dude,
shit.
it's not an album made for singles. It's all about the whole thing.
I
always
don't
listen
know.
to
Yeah,
it straight,
Dan,
you know?
yeah, Dan, you tell him.
But I don't know.
I get what he's saying. It's not like a singles piece. you
Even
know?
with the singles, I don't really see myself ever queuing one of these songs. I'm gonna do my one hot take per episode. And after the run through, like, and a little bit of homework, I'm going to conclude that this is the Walmart Steely Dan, where it's just a cool
Oh,
duo
man.
Wow.
with a ton of studio musicians.
Oh my goodness.
Just cancel myself again on the internet, but
All
but I will say I'm kind of
Wow.
interested to hear what stood out to you guys while you were going through the album to see if there's anything I'm just missing out on. Didn't listen too closely, anything like that.
So on that Steely Dan piece,
Yeah.
when I finished this album, it kind of goes shuffle, like play similar songs. It just played Steely Dan after Steely Dan right when it's finished. And it's that
New Spotify feature.
yeah, just like
Okay.
play similar song after.
Spotify radio.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just went right into Steely Dan.
They
this
use
is
a lot of
good.
horns.
Yeah. There's this is some good yacht rock. Easy listening.
Big yacht rock guy.
I'm a yacht rock radio man. And When the Morning Comes it's a beautiful song. I think that, it's a great intro into it. I think from there
I
it
think
kind
it's
of ebbs and
something-
flows with like what I like in the album. It starts out strong, and then in my opinion, it kind of, I don't know. She's Gone it's kind of got like at this point it's so radio. It's such a radio song, and it's in so much like kind of cliche. I feel like it's the backdrop of a lot of cliche like love stories and stuff. So it kind of has that connotation when I listen to it. But I can still appreciate it because when it came out, it was probably pretty visionary, and it didn't have that when it came out. So taking it just at face value, it's a great song. I think the second side is like it's one of those albums where like the B-side is better, and I think it was like the opposite of last week for me. But the B-side's awesome. Like Abandoned Luncheonette is really cool, and then Lady Rain I think is my top song on the album. It is just like
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
it's
That mandolin, man.
I know.
So
I
good.
was sucking for mandolin, and then
Damn, so am I, and I just missed that, so I'm gonna have to listen to that one
yeah,
again.
go back and
Dude.
listen.
That's good.
I think the standout moment for me was the transition from Lady Rain to Laughing Boy. It is such a stark transition, and it's really cool.
Mhm.
So there's some
just
features.
piano piece. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. And reading kind of like Hall Oates' take on this album, like when they're producing it, there's a quote on this Wikipedia page that was talking about how this is the first time that they
Probably find it.
yeah I don't know where it would be. Yeah, that's it right there.
This one?
No,
No.
go up, down. Um,
Up to the top of the page.
Having the Wikipedia article open is a good call. And speaking of, probably should have read it beforehand. I know we talked about doing that.
I don't remember where the quote is.
I made it up.
You're
Anyway.
gonna side with
Can
every news
Inki
just
control
right.
F it? Do you remember anything from it?
No.
I don't remember the quote at all.
I made it up now.
It's actually a quote.
It's actually me. It's my quote.
It's my quote. They were talking about though, the like idea of this, like looking at songs as songs, but now like having a different view of like looking at it as a record. And that's kind of what, to Dan's point, like this album was about like the album, the entirety of it. And I think like I could appreciate that more on the second side, because like on the A side, She's Gone, I think just kind of pulls me out because of my like previous experience of listening to it. But side two was I think just like through like the whole thing is just like a really good side.
Are you saying you didn't like She's Gone that much?
I'm not a huge She's Gone fan, and
Okay.
It is the
like,
overplayed song, you know.
yeah, it's just like, to me it's I liken it to just like cliche rom-coms and stuff.
Cheesy.
It's just a little too cheesy, and like I wish I could appreciate it at face value without having that like previous connotation, but I can't separate it, and that's just too bad. But side two, I think is great. Side one is all right in my opinion, but side two is great. Yeah. Anyways,
I think
go ahead, Dan, or Nigel,
Yeah.
whoever.
I was just gonna say I have like a completely different experience because I knew pretty much none of these songs going in. So for me, She's Gone is not overplayed at all, because I'm sure I've heard it before, but it was not familiar. But there were like 4 songs on the album that I really liked, and everything else was like kind of okay. And then I would say Las Vegas Turnaround, I just did not like at all. I skipped it. So I listened to this album like a lot over the past week because I felt guilty because last week I didn't listen to the album.
Nice.
Made up for it.
Yeah, I didn't listen to it till like, it was time to go
Until like during the podcast.
live. Yeah. So When the Morning Comes, I liked a lot. I like kind of the story of Had I Known You Better. I like the idea, like the theme of the song. I mean, it kind of, for me, I've moved around a lot. Like, I don't think I've lived in the same place for like more than 2 years in the past like 7 years. So I feel like having that experience of like meeting somebody, whether it's a friend or something more, and then you like have to go before you like really get to know them. But I feel like you would have been closer had you had the opportunity. But I like that theming of the song. She's Gone, I also really liked. I think that's 1 or 2 between that and Lady Rain. Those 2 like really hit. I'm Just a Kid, I like the theming on that too. Just the way it's like, it's fun to just not take things seriously, and it's not fun when you're not trying to have the expectations of reality on you, and then people are just like, oh, give me this, give me that, let's do.
Yeah, man, they make a
Boys,
good love song, but like
Yeah.
also kind of not a love song.
Yeah, it's
Very
kind of
good
like
lyricism here.
a puppy love song almost, instead of like we're having fun, but like, oh, I don't want to get married and provide for a family right now. I'm just trying to have enjoy the moment, And then Lady Rain is awesome. Every Time I Look at You is also awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's I would say that's my take. MVP is probably Lady Rain. Favorite song is probably She's Gone, and least favorite is definitely Las Vegas Turnaround. I don't like that song at all.
I also
It's kind of hokey. It gets hokey.
I feel like you got to give She's Gone credit for being like a radio song at a 5 minute, 12-second length. Like that's really long for a radio hit. And I think
That's a
that
good
like
point.
kind of speaks volume to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Has a great groove to it. The drums are awesome. I think Lady Rain and She's Gone are probably the ones I would want to play too. They seem like the most fun to play.
Yeah, good takes. Is it just me and Dan that haven't gone?
Yeah, and I also want to go back to Inky's point once you guys are done, and I want to hear more about this Walmart thing. But I want to hear you guys first.
Garbage.
Yeah, I think he's gonna need it. We're gonna need to get him back on the
No,
stand.
no. Let's just
Testify
keep going.
on that one a little bit longer. But I think Dan, you want to go last? I'll go next, just since you have the most
Sure,
insight
go
on the
ahead,
album.
go for it. Go for it.
And then we can kind of circle back around. So I like. First off, I didn't listen to this album until this morning. I mean, I've listened to it with Dan before, but great Sunday morning vibe. Love a yacht rock Sunday morning. Got nothing better going on. Skipped the gym today. Just living,
Perfect.
finding my yacht. You know what I mean?
Finding my inner yacht.
And so good Sunday morning vibe. I kind of want to re-listen to it because you guys are pointing out all these songs that like whoever said it, maybe Inky and Nigel, Jack, you may have kind of alluded to it too. Like some of these songs don't really like stick out as much, at least the way that I listen to this album and like what I listen to in music. Like I feel like a lot of people would say every song on Boston's debut album kind of could sound the same to them. But like I know, I mean, I've also heard that album a million times, but like I can differentiate those songs within the first second every time I hear them.
Shit City, by the way.
You're lying. No one can do that.
So is that a good, I don't like what I'm hearing, but is that a good like comparison?
You know, another hot take. Maybe Inky and Seamus, we should just kick them out of here.
Dude, I think we're finally getting to the point where we're gonna start fighting each other on here.
Good.
Wait till we have
Great
an in-person episode. It's not going to go well.
Bloodbath.
So and I kind of just have been like jotting down notes so that I don't forget things. So She's Gone, overrated or not? I think you could say it's overrated. I don't know. Solid song. Kind of catchy, definitely a little cliche. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen it in like a TV show or a movie. I heard it in a TV show or a movie or anything like that would attach a super cliche connotation to it. Although again, I know what you mean. It's very kind of like that like 80s yacht rock, 70s, 80s like yacht rock kind of soul-y kind of vibe, a little on the nose. I think I listened to it once today, and then I kind of, with the free time I had, started to go back into it again. And I think Had I Known You Better was one that I heard, and I was like, not really into this. But again, you guys have pointed out some things that make me want to re-listen to it. Nigel had good lyrical insight on that. Which
we know you don't listen to lyrics, so
I mean they could be speaking Spanish, really, but I mean it doesn't make a difference. But maybe I'll actually pull the lyrics up, and it sounds like they have cool lyrical themes to all this. It also sounds like Nigel just pays a lot more attention to that than me. I feel like I'm honestly pretty easy to impress with that. I probably listen to a lot of music that has very, very shallow lyrics.
Yo, they're speaking English, sick.
Yeah. Oh, I speak this language too.
I speak this language too. Oh shit.
That's sick.
What else? So I think I may have liked Las Vegas Turnaround. I definitely felt a little bit better about it than Nigel did, I think. But again, probably have to re-listen to that. What I will kind of say and end on, and what my MVP is besides Hugh's brother Phil McCracken. I think, dude, someone finally mentioned it. I think maybe Nigel mentioned it at the end of what he was saying, but I love Every Time I Look at You.
Great.
I actually meant to ask you guys if you could pick like what you thought my favorite would have been. I feel like that's
a fun game. Pick everyone's favorite.
I feel like that one would have been the most like up my alley if I don't know, like if you would have heard that and thought that, but it's the one
electric guitar.
Yeah, and the most kind of improv lead soloing at the end of it. It's a 2-minute song. It's one of those really cool, like longer rock songs that progresses through it and just builds into this really cool kind of lead guitar part at the end, which you all know.
It's a great song.
what I listen to music for, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
would have guessed Lady Rain or Every Time I Look at You, but it seems like you were like in another room taking
Nigel,
a
yeah,
shit when you were
I
listening to
love
Lady Rain. Because
so you're saying you thought of me when you heard Every Time I Look at You?
oh yeah, that one and Lady Rain. I was like, oh, you love this.
Yeah. So no, Every Time I Look at You was a great song. That's like, I know I saved She's Gone and Every Time I Look at You as I listen to this on Spotify. And I'll give it another listen because honestly, like when I went back and just listened to snippets right before we joined on here, I was like, there is some really cool musical stuff. A lot of good instrumentation on the album, a lot of variation with that. So shout out that part as well. I thought that was kind of cool. But I'll definitely be listening to Every Time I Look at You again right after for this.
All right, Dan, let's hear it. Bring it home.
Can't
From the
wait.
master himself.
Bring it home.
So-
Yeah.
I kind of have the exact opposite take from Jack. I'm a big fan of the first side of this album because when I got into this, was playing a lot of guitar, and whenever I'm playing guitar, even now, I still always look like finger picking. It's like the most fun style to play. It's how I get into it, and like songs you can sing along with. And I'm a big fan of Had I Known You Better Then because it just has such a sweet acoustic guitar part. Like I think most of the songs on the first side were written by John Oates. Later in their career, you don't really hear from him that much. He's just kind of playing the guitar and like dancing in the music video. But yeah, I think that song is brilliant, and most of the first side songs are. I understand why Nigel doesn't like Las Vegas Turnaround. I mean, those lyrics might be the might be the most bland, and it kind of sounds the most hokey. But I still think
Yeah.
it's a great song.
Well, you're wrong, but it's
Silly
okay.
enough, I don't listen to the album too much, like recently, so listening to that song is kind of fun, but it definitely gets a little tiresome. But like When the Morning Comes, great opener. Uh, Abandoned Luncheonette, like love the story to that song as well. Got a great sound. Because like this, they were heavily influenced. I don't know if you guys know anything about the genre of Philly soul,
Yeah.
like Motown in the 70s. Like it's all about strings, horns, and they employ that a lot in this album. Like they throw in a bunch of horn parts, especially the one like the horn solo in a Abandoned Luncheonette. Like it's a classic. But I'm a big fan of the first side. Like, yeah, I think everything you guys are saying about the second side is totally true. Every Time I Look at You is an amazing finishing song for the album. Jack brought up the transition from Lady Rain into Laughing Boy, which is prime. Goes from this really crazy bop your head song to it to just this beautiful piece that Daryl Hall wrote. But yeah, I got to give my MVP to the first side. I think this is the only album in their discography you really get like the best of John Oates, which I think is really cool. Like he's definitely an integral part of the band. But yeah, I got MVP to the first side. My favorite song, Had I Known You Better Then. I just love playing that guitar part. It's an absolute classic for me.
Sweet.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also really telling looking at the Spotify. Like I have the album up on Spotify and seeing the like stream volume for each song. Like
Right,
the
yeah.
first side, everything's over 2.3 million listens. And then on the B side, everything's under a million, except for Abandoned Luncheonette, it's at 1.3. But like there's a serious like drop from side A to
Drop
side
off.
B of like how many streams, which I think is like pretty telling.
Yeah, like both of them have been quoted saying that like they would put the first side of this album up against any album, like you would say. Like they would put it
Yeah.
up against the Beatles, and like they're
Yeah.
confident about how much they love that first side, and I think like it's a masterpiece.
That's definitely a great way to make people hate you.
Yeah.
Comparing yourself to
Hey,
the
no
Beatles.
comment.
No, he didn't do that directly, but you know, like they really
Okay,
love
okay.
this is a special album to them. Like they had a
Yeah,
great producer on it who produced like Aretha Franklin and like Phil Collins. Like they had a lot going for them. Great session musicians. Like James, you mentioned the instrumentation, which like it may not be totally up your alley, but like you got to appreciate how good these songs kind of sound, how well produced it is.
Yeah, I mean, you can see all the different musicians that played on the album down below. I don't know if that list is cut off at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Fiddle. Oh, and I mean, dude, who doesn't love a flugelhorn?
Yeah, that's pretty
Horn
sick.
section, baby.
Oh yeah.
The
Oboe.
electric
Threw a lot of
violin.
stuff in.
Um,
Mandolin,
I'm
man, they
laughing,
make
boy.
it work.
Yeah, that's sick. Is there a mandolin on there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Big mandolin guy. I feel like I kind of missed that a little bit when listening.
Probably should have listened to the album, Seamus.
That's like the
What a
opening.
rookie.
You got me. You got me.
It's the main
Yeah.
riff for Lady Rainbow. It's the best.
Big mandolin guy. It's used in a lot of Irish folk music and obviously like the Irish kind of punk folk music, whatever, however you would describe that genre. That is Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly. But
I've heard of the Irish.
Yeah.
They had like a famine or two. I don't know.
Yeah.
Big potato guys. Jack, you said you had a bone to pick with Inki.
God damn it. I was gonna say, shall we just roll right into the
I
ratings
mean, I
here?
just want
No,
to,
no,
I just want to
no.
learn more.
Yeah, we need
I mean, I
more of.
prefer- I'm more of a
the
Steely
Walmart.
Dan fan if I had to go head to head, but I don't know. I feel like Inky could have. I want to hear more, I guess, from Inky's perspective
You
on the
gotta
album.
back that
And then
up,
it can be quick, and then we can just hop into the rating.
Yeah, I can keep it pretty quick. Feel like I'm getting caught with my pants down here a little bit, kind of just breeze through the album. And, especially Nigel, he seems like he really did his homework this weekend, maybe overcompensating for last week. But no, I mean, I did largely agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, but I still hold that nothing really stood out to me. Like When the Morning Comes, I do think is a perfect intro to the album song. I think a lot of the themes that Nigel was talking about is like pretty classic 80s boy meets girl sort of stuff. And yes, I did like what Jack was saying with side two. Seamus, actually, I'd probably go with Every Time I Look at You as my favorite as well. But
I thought that might have tickled your fancy a little bit.
yeah, pretty groovy, pretty funky.
I feel like you could maybe throw that on the drunk driving playlist.
That's a pretty good call. Yeah, we'll have to play around with that one.
Is that actually what that playlist is called?
DUI, right?
Oh,
It's a classic.
Even better. DUI is in fact a vibe. I did not
It
know that.
is.
But
It's a
It
vibe.
is.
still now.
I remember I stumbled across that on Inky's profile, and I laughed so hard.
It's the kind of
Instant
playlist
follow.
I want to be turning down as I hear police sirens.
Yeah, maybe switching over to something else. It's pretty incriminating, but
It would be super ironic if you did get a DUI while listening to that playlist.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
They'd probably let you go, honestly.
The officer's like,
Like,
you're
that seems
oddly
pretty cool.
prepared for this.
Clearly, you've done this before and been fine. So
Yeah, Walmart Steely Dan is definitely a hot take, but I see where you're coming from. I mean, I probably can't really speak to it musically enough, but there are some similarities with like a wide range of instrumentation and some of the stuff they're doing with the harmonies and everything.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I don't, and I love Steely Dan. I think we all do. So I don't, but I'm okay to put them on two different planes here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think like Steely Dan doing this kind of style is so much more like they're titans. Like everybody's heard of them. Asia could
Yeah.
you can put that album up to anything.
biggest continent.
Best
Yeah.
album ever. Yes.
But like I think Abandoned Luncheonette ends up being more like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
that's the point.
course,
Yeah.
it's definitely like flies under, but like I
That's a
think in
good
terms of what Hall Oates has done, like this is kind of makes you do a double take. I think it's kind of stand out compared to what you think of what Steely like or what Hall Oates did. 80s pop guys, yeah, but no, they really had some chops and they showed off here.
Early 70s, great stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a great segue into ranking the album.
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I feel like we're going to be coming from like 5 different angles here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. What do you guys thinking? Anyone have a clear opinion of this?
Yeah,
Let's
I
let's
think mine
stand.
is
Where do
more
you think
clear.
it should go? And Inky, where do you think it should go? And then we'll meet in the
All right.
middle.
Yeah.
I definitely get because
Okay.
like what's on the list right now are pretty epic, historical, fantastical albums. But this I'm said is more like a diamond in the rough. Like I get that I like this album really can't stand up, honestly, to a lot of what we have on here in my mind, Like in my opinion, is definitely biased. I love this kind of music like so much more clearly than you guys. I pick Had I Known You Better. It's like my favorite. Love the acoustic piece, you know. Um, so I don't know. I would put it like maybe top of B. And I feel like you guys might be more open to that than me saying A tier, my favorite album ever. S tier, let's go.
So
And
that's
I
your
think
concession.
Top
yeah,
Definitely not S
I'm
tier.
making my concession early from everything I've
That's-
heard.
That might be the wrong move. We might drop you lower.
Yeah, I
Inky, what are you
just as a,
thinking?
as a
What do
placeholder.
you-
I think I said everything I needed to say. So
That's a C right there for
yeah,
Inky.
pretty easy C for me.
Jack?
C.
Oh man, I hate confrontation. Um, I feel like I need to listen to it again before I can
We don't
really
have time
say-
for that.
I know we do not have time for that.
Right
do we?
here, right now, Jack. Say C. Do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with C, but I want to listen to this again, and then maybe I'll have a different opinion next week. Yeah, when we're doing this
It's a
again.
fair
But
take.
right now, I feel like I have to go C. Yeah,
There.
it's easy listening. That's all I'll say. I enjoy that. It's really nice.
Nige, what are you thinking?
I mean, I listened to it a lot the past week, and I didn't mind listening to it a lot. If we're talking like if I had it on vinyl and I couldn't skip Las Vegas Turnaround, and
Interesting way to look at it.
because the thing is
That
like
makes it
Gun to your
worse.
there's a couple songs where it's like because it goes from like high energy to low energy to high energy to low energy like over and over again, and I don't like that. But there's a couple songs, When the Morning Comes, She's Gone, Lady Rain, and Every Time I Look at You that are really good in my opinion. And then the other ones are I'm gonna have to go like a high C, maybe a low B.
Bottom of B. How do you
Could
feel
do-
about
I
that,
think-
guys?
James,
I
I think you're the
think-
tiebreaker here.
I know, I kind of set it up to be that way on purpose. So my stance is probably either low B or high C, kind of like Nigel said. So let's use what's on the board as a reference point here. I don't know if I'd say I like it more than London Calling. Honestly,
Agreed.
I might like it more
Yeah.
than Music from Big Pink.
I'm in the same boat, Seamus.
Now, I also think that Music from Big Pink could be high C. Because I think if that's B, then we're going to be putting everything in S, A, or B. And we've already kind of said we're probably not going to waste our time with an F album.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I like it more than Music from Big Pink, even though it's classic, you know.
So my concession here is that whatever we do with this, it goes ahead of Music from Big Pink.
So
But
let's
is
move
it
Big
a
Pink to
high?
C.
Is it a low B or a high C?
I say move Big Pink to C, and
I think I'm good with that too. Nigel,
Yeah, I mean, I guess
going
it's
back
just
to that
how you
episode.
want to move it. I think
Well said.
low B is good.
I also am
I
so
like that.
upset that I missed that episode where we did Rubber Soul. I cannot believe that's an S. But well,
Like I said before, I got outvoted.
So yeah, I could see that moving. I could honestly see this Hall Oates album going down to high C. I could see American Beauty is probably gonna get bumped down to B. Because let's face it, like I know I was just tempted to talk about all of those songs as they are performed live. And that's largely because I don't listen to Studio Grateful Dead that much. Which it's a very good album, but like, well, if you don't listen to it that much, doesn't that tell you that it's not like an A? You know what I mean?
mhm.
So I can see that getting bumped down. I can see Rubber Soul coming down one. I think the next time we do a
Yeah.
Beatles one is probably when we'll talk about Rubber Soul getting moved.
Cool.
I'm an S guy there, and he's
Yeah.
an S guy there, but we'll put that on the back burner for a Beatles day. A Beatles day
Everything's
is
always up
probably
for
going to
debate.
yeah, a Beatles day is probably going to be a longer podcast, I think, as we have more like this session alone on the next Beatles album could take like 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
fine with how this looks right now, though, and I still think some things might get pushed down. but I think we're all in the mindset of like, well, it's kind of harsh to call something a C. But again, like this is all also relative to like I think
Great
all of these
music.
albums are like A's in terms of the whole scope of music.
Yeah, it's
If
tough
we start
competition. It's
throwing
all
like
relative.
Yeah.
Katy Perry albums in here,
Whoa,
then
whoa.
Let's not knock Katie.
All right.
Okay.
Miss
Calm down.
Perry is
Easy there,
talented.
James.
okay.
When's the first Taylor Swift album? No.
Yeah, no, it's all relative. You know, it's a really stiff competition. So
I also think that we might accidentally come across an F. We'll hit some Three Dog Night at some point.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart.
No.
Well, we know we're gonna get.
Oh man.
Yeah, I think probably by the time we're like 20 episodes in or something like that, and we start really reaching and getting creative, we might be like, oh, dude, this band's kind of cool. I don't know this album by then.
Right.
And then we all
exactly.
just show up pissed off. We're like, dude, that was horrible.
Trash it.
Like AC/DC's like 10th studio album released in like
Yeah,
1997 that nobody knows about.
Podcast starts. You say, "How did we get here? How
Where
get
did
to
we
this?"
go wrong? But yeah, that's all I got.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Few minutes to spare
Slowly,
too.
slowly
shot,
turning
guys.
into the highlight of my week, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a great time.